Good evening everyone. My name is Prithvi. I will be dealing with fundamentals of computers for this semester for you all. So before we move on to our topic, let's see. Back and front ke
నెక్స్ట్ వెళ్ళాలండి బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ సైడ్
So in the first unit we will be discussing about the basic computer knowledge.
టచ్ అయితే నెక్స్ట్
వెళ్ళిపోద్దా? Okay.
సరే బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ అక్కడ పెన్ టచ్ చేయండి అదే ఫస్ట్ మీరు పెన్ యూస్ చేయాలనుకుంటే సైడ్
ఇదా?
దాన్ని క్లిక్ చేసినప్పుడు అది హోల్డ్లో క్లిక్ చేయకుండా టచ్ చేస్తే నెక్స్ట్ లైట్
ఓకే.
రెండుసార్లు టచ్ చేయాలి ఇంకా అవసరం లేదు
పోనీ అదే కదా.
మీరు ఇప్పుడు ఏ రాయాలో రాయొచ్చు.
Okay. Start. So in this unit we will be discussing about first the basic computer knowledge, computer organization and the types of computers. Let me first explain you the first two lines so that you will get a basic idea of what actually we are going to deal about. Usually everyone these days are using computers a lot and we all know the basic operations of a computer, but if you go into the architecture or if you go deeper into the system design, there are lots of things that we don't know or we would be wondering about, or how that technology is happening. So we'll be dealing about all of that initially, and later we can go towards the next topics based on the components of computers, input devices, output devices, etc. As those things are all related to the theory part and there won't be much to talk about. But the first two lines are very important for anyone who is starting with the fundamentals of computer, because these days you people are into forensic science and whatever investigations that will be doing in the future, everything has digital data or digital records related to it. There are so many digital evidences that are found in the criminal cases and the crime scenes. So to deal with all of that and also to pursue your career into computers and forensics together, we have to first understand what are the important features of a computer and how it is designed, how it is started. So that is all about the first two lines, where basic computer knowledge is all about how did the computing system started, what kind of a technology did they use, what kind of devices did they use. All this comes into the picture. After that we have the computer organization. This is the computer organization, that is the second part. In computer organization what we do is we try to explain you the basics of computer architecture, where what are the components that you have in a motherboard, or what is the capability of a processor, how many kinds of processors do you have. All these things come under your computer organization. How are they organized? And when you purchase a laptop or a system, depending upon your model or depending upon the company, the performance and its features vary. That is all based on the organization that is dependent on the computer. Like each company has its own organizations and the way they process the devices or the parts inside it, as well as the way they program them. It all depends upon them. Also your mobile phones, if you consider, you have the RAM management over there. Not all companies are able to give you the best RAM management over there. So all these things are based on your computer organization or the organization of your hardware. So and then we'll be discussing about the types of computers. These days we all know only a few kinds of computers or different types, where we all are using the same thing. But when you go into the past, where all this started, we had so many different kinds of computers, so many different kinds of technologies evolving. It was so different in those days that a computer was almost half in the like it was like half the size of a room. It was that big and massive. But if you see today, you have laptops with integrated chips all around, and the component size have reduced drastically. So we'll first see what kind of what types of computers we used to have, what kind of technology was used initially, how did all this start, and how did we evolve to such a higher technology. We'll be discussing about all these things, and discussing about all this is very important, because without knowing how it all started or how it is created, using it would be of no use, or anybody could do that. But we as forensic scientists or like in the future you will be pursuing careers related to forensics and digital forensics, where you need to understand every minute step inside a computer. You should be able to understand what all happens inside the computer. Otherwise, learning the tools directly or managing them wouldn't be of no use. It will be very difficult in the future. Those who have the knowledge of computers, it's okay with them, but they also have to understand the architecture and the design behind the computer. And those who don't know anything about computers, you need not worry on anything about it, because we'll be starting from the scratch. We'll be explaining you what a computer is, like what does the computer term mean, what does it have, what features does it have, what kind of applications can you use. We'll be dealing with all of them, and in the practicals we'll be doing the hands-on, where you can understand and you can try it yourself, all that is related to the computers. And then in the second part we have the components of computer. Components of computer, generally if you are using a desktop PC or something, you will be having your CPU cabinet, your monitor, keyboard, mouse, etc. But when we talk about the components of computer, it majorly stresses more on the processor and its components internally. What kind of units do you have inside the motherboard, or what is the technology and what kind of chips do we use inside the motherboard or the processor? How many kinds do we have? How is so much data being stored into these tiny chips? All that comes under this components and its technologies. And then you have your input devices, keyboard, mouse. All this we know. If someone asks you like what is a keyboard, what is a mouse, you would be able to tell. But we should make our learning process in such a way that how is that keyboard working, how is that mouse working. That is how we have to learn everything about, because if there is something related to keyboard or mouse and is a question asked by someone, you shouldn't be like the normal people who tell about the keyboard, its structure or something like that. You should be able to explain them the technology that is behind it, how is it being operated, etc. Only then there would be a difference between us and the other people who are using the computer. And then we have various kinds of pointing devices, touchpads, etc. And then this is all in the first unit. I didn't want you to confuse in the first class itself, so that's why I'm only explaining you the first unit today, where just try to grab in as many points as you can based on these types, and depending upon that we'll move further in the next units. So the next part in the first unit is your devices, desktop icons. All this is the outer part again, where these are all the user interface level, where you'll be able to interact with the desktop icons, with the control panel objects. When you just type in control panel on your computer, you'll be able to see what all things do you have inside it. Operating system types. Operating system types is one more major and crucial concept that we have to stress upon and think about it, because without an operating system there is nothing that happens with a computer. You cannot interact with it, you cannot make it understand what you're trying to tell, and all. And then you have creating files, folders, exploring the folders, files and programs, editing a document file. All these things are, again, when you see it from the outside world, it's like very simple, or it will be something which you learn in the theory part, or which you just learn it in few steps. I'll give you an example where files and creating files and folders. Generally, any one of us these days, as we are used to these computers, will be easily creating files and folders. But did we ever question ourselves like, how is this files and folders working? How is it able to store it, and how is it able to organize the data? When you open your drive, C drive or a D drive, you have so many folders in that. and in each folder you have so many files, so much data that is stored, and all this data is being managed so efficiently, and also it's able to give you in fraction of seconds, like for whatever file that you search. How is it able to do all that? We'll not only discuss about creating files and folders the normal way, but I'll show you the basic part first, and then I'll try to explain you what kind of a concept is underlying this files and its structures. And then editing document files. We have various kinds of files. Generally, if you consider data, you have so many kinds of data available. In that, if you just consider the documents data, over there also we have so many kinds of tools that we use to store our documents or process our documents. If you consider Adobe Acrobat Reader, that is your PDF reader, that is one kind of a document. Your Windows, Microsoft Word is one kind of a document, Excel is one kind of a document. So each document has its own structure, its properties, functions, etc., and based on it, it has its own extension formats, etc. So to understand all that, you should be a little bit patient and also a little bit curious to know about what is this all about and how do we learn everything. And then this is all about unit 1. And then in this unit, first thing that we are going to learn about is what is a computer. First, I'll try to explain you the definition of a computer, how this term has come up, and then we'll talk about data processing, the characteristic features of a computer. If you consider a person or an object, it has its own characteristics and features. The same way, over here the computer is also an object. It has its own characteristics, features. You should first understand what the computer is capable of, what it can do, what kind of features does it have. If you understand all this, based on that you can make your path towards it and create whatever that career that you want to choose, and etc. So the first thing over here you have to understand is the definition of a computer. The definition of the computer term itself has come from the word compute, which means to calculate. Generally, when you go back 10-15 years, like 15-20 years back, the most common definition or the most common term that you heard was computer is for calculations. What does a computer do? It performs calculations. But these days the technology has advanced so much that our computer is able to do any kind of a task based on the programs that you write or based on the processing capabilities that it has. But initially in the starting days, computers were only used for calculations, and then it is generally considered as a device which performs arithmetic operations at very high speeds. Generally, a human brain is very much slower than what a computer performs. A computer might perform tasks in like 10 power minus 6 seconds, each task in it's like 0.00006. It's so fast, but we humans at least tend to take 1 to 2 seconds to calculate some tasks, some arithmetic operations or mathematical calculations. So there is a very large gap between the human brain calculation power as well as the processors or the computer's power. So that is why generally we call that computer as a arithmetic calculator or a calculating device at very high speeds. And then computer is also known as a data processor, where it can store, process, retrieve data. What do you mean by data processing? We'll see in the next slide, but before that you have to understand these three terms. First thing is the computer is able to store, process and retrieve data. You have to understand each and every term in the first 1-2 units. Only then it will become very easy for you to interpret and make yourself understand better in the future courses or wherever you would like to learn. because every small term has a lot of meaning in this, where as a small example I can tell you that this sentence looks very simple as of now, but a computer is also called a data processor. Let's put this aside for a while, because it can store, process and retrieve data. Storing in the sense, whatever data that you store into your computer, it means the computer can store whatever data you give based on the capacity of the computer, and then it can process. A computer can process whatever data you give based on the algorithm or the program that you use. That is the second thing. The third thing is retrieving data. When you are putting something, when you are giving an input to the computer, it's processing something and it is storing into your hard disk or somewhere. There are some, let's consider a small storage medium is there where it's storing whatever data that you have processed, and then when you would like to retrieve it later on, this retrieving step helps you in it. So data computer is a data processing unit that you can call, which can store, process and retrieve data. Now we'll see one I would like to tell you the difference between data and information. Generally people get confused, and it's a very common question that people tend to ask us, where what do you mean by data, what do you mean by information? Generally both look very similar, and it's not that difficult for anyone to answer such questions. It might be very simple question, but there is a little trick inside this, where we have to first understand what is data, what is information, because these two are completely different. These two have total different characteristics. So we'll see what it is. Generally the activity of processing the data is called data processing. Okay, and first you have to understand what is data processing. Inside this, what are you doing? As we have already mentioned, the data that you are sending as an input to your computer, that is being processed by the computer, and it's giving you an output. That output is either stored in the computer in the storage space, otherwise it's giving you as an output on the display. There are two ways over here. So that complete process that is done by the computer, where you giving the input and getting the output, it's called data processing. Okay, then we were talking about data and information, right? So data is something that is the raw kind of a thing, where whatever, suppose you are entering something into the keyboard to give that as an input to the computer. In such a case, the data that you are entering, that will be your raw data, which has no other features, characteristics, anything. It has no strings attached to it. It's the plain data, the plain text that you are entering over there. And then what is happening inside that plain text is taken as an input, and whatever program that you are using inside your computer, that is processing the data that you are entering. Once the data that is processed inside your computer, then that gives you an output based on the input that you have provided, where that is called the information, because information has something understandable or something which is valuable to the user, where that has some insights to be taken from the information, whereas data is something that we are providing, or that will be the input part for your computer. Now you can see this flow chart, where the first thing what we are doing is we are providing data to the computer, and then that data is being captured by the computer. Without storing the data that you are sending to the computer, it cannot process the data, because if you are just putting it into the computer and it doesn't have a medium to store it, how will it use it in the process? Because processing is not just like one simple task or one single step. There might be lot of repetitions happening inside the process. Suppose there is a process, let's consider we are providing some input and there is a box in between, which is our processing part. Now this data is sent into that box, where the processing starts initially. The first round of processing is done, and then this data is already stored inside this box, right, for processing. In the second step of processing, this data might not be useful or it isn't required. So but it might use some other data or some other input as for the processing. But when it's taking the third step of processing, it might require this first data again. So how will you retrieve it again? So that is the reason we have to store the data that is given as input to the computer in a storage medium. Then what will happen? The computer will be able to retrieve data whenever, like it will be able to access the data that is stored in its processes how many ever times it wants, and then give us an output. That output, if it is providing us on this monitor, even then it has to store it somewhere to give it as an output. Also, once it is provided on the monitor, the output that is required, still that might be useful for us in the later stages. That is why that needs to be also stored. So whatever processes are happening inside a computer, everything should be stored in your computer's data. That is why the operating systems are all programmed in such a way that whatever data that you given, there is some or the other way of storage for these files. Next thing is, we will look at the characteristics of a computer. What are the different characteristics of that a computer can have? The first thing is, it is automatic. If you give it a job, it will do it automatically. Like it is not a manual process where you have to be with it and do it. You will just give it some instructions, and the processor and the programs that are already present inside the computer, they take care of whatever needs to be done and whatever it is capable of. If we are programming the computer with a few instructions and we are expecting something else that is not programmed into the computer, then the computer won't be able to do it. But if you are providing the right set of instructions and the right input to the computer, it will take the input, it will process whatever is required, and it will give you. I can give you an example for processors where you can consider ATM machines. ATM machines are very good for examples of processing, because when you put your card into the ATM, only then it will be able to access your account and show you all the details. When it's showing you the details, you have to give the right input to it. When you want to check your balance, but you are selecting an option where you wanted to withdraw the money, then that wouldn't coincide, and that is not the right input that the ATM requires, and it will give you an output based on that. So this is all a different part, but still whatever input you are giving, based on that only your output will be there, and the programs that are inside your computer. So the first thing is, computers can automatically work. You don't have to put in some extra effort after giving your input, and you need not do anything else for the computer to process itself. The second thing is speed. We were talking about speed previously. So computers can perform data processing very fast, where you can see it can process in around microseconds, which is 10 power minus 6, nanoseconds 10 power minus 9, and picoseconds. Picoseconds is 10 power minus 12. Just imagine data being processed at that rapid speed. Even if the human practices a lot, or if he acquires so many skills, even then we wouldn't be able to capture the speed of the computer. And this speed is increasing day by day based on the processors, the technologies that we are using. We will all see that in the computer architecture, how is speed related to this, how is it affecting the processes, how are the applications being managed, everything will go into further sessions. And then accuracy. If I am trying to compare the computer and the human as of now, where suppose if the human is asked a question which he knows, like if the human is asked what is 2 plus 2 like some 1000 times continuously, at one or the other point we might make a mistake, or there wouldn't be that much patience for us, and the accuracy wouldn't be there while answering the question. But whereas the computers, they'll be always accurate and they'll be always able to give you the same output. how many ever times we give it the input, the right input and the right programs, the same way the computers will give you the right output. And then diligence. Computers are never tired, like it all depends upon the processor that it has and the input or the load that you put on the computer. Load in the sense the number of applications that you use. The more the number of applications you use, the more the better processors that you require. If you are using a very basic processor and if you are trying to put in so much load onto the computer by opening so many applications or trying to process so many tasks, then in such a case that computer would become like it wouldn't be sufficient for it. But when you are giving the right number of tasks to the right number of processors, it will be definitely able to give you the same output as many times as you want, until and unless we have all the external conditions that are required. So it's never tired, and the lack of concentration, it doesn't even it doesn't deviate itself from it from the input that you give and the processes that it has to do. And then we have versatility. If you generally, people say that these days when we are using these devices or computers, we are able to achieve some tasks that were not possible previously with computers. In the previous days, like 10-15 years back, we weren't able to process some applications or we weren't able to perform some tasks based on the computers or with the help of computers, but today we are able to do it. The reason is the computer is just a machine which takes in instructions, obediently follows it, and it gives you an output. That is how it acts. So if you are able to divide the problem into small parts, and if you are able to make some logical steps and program it in such a way that it understands everything, then even the most complex problem can also be solved by the computer. That is what versatility means. If you are able to divide that problem into a finite number of steps and then try to give it as an input to the computer or as a task to the computer will be definitely able to perform this operation. And then power of remembering. Until and unless we delete something forcefully or we try to delete manually by ourselves, the computer, or maybe in some cases due to some power loss or something, there might be some damage to the data. But as of now, and generally whenever you are using a computer, how many times you restart it, how many times you turn off your computer and turn it on, the data is always present inside your computer, whatever it is. So the computers don't forget anything that you have given it as an input or the task that you have performed. It always stores whatever it is storing, it always has the data about it. And then the computers, the problem with, we cannot call it a problem actually, it is a good thing for us, because the computers don't have any IQ or anything, where whatever you tell them and how you perform operations on that, based on it will give you an output. Other than that, there is nothing else that the computers use. They don't have any kind of senses, or it doesn't have any kind of a memory, but where it can be able to perform the operations by itself, and it has no feelings and no emotions. This is all about the characteristics of computers. Then now I'll be talking to you about the evolution of computers. The computers initially, the first kind, it is not even it cannot be even called as computer, but in those days the first mechanical machine that was used to create calculations was mechanical adding machine, that was created by Blaise Pascal. Blaise Pascal in 1642, he invented this mechanical adding machine, which is the first of its kind, and it is the first one where the evolution of computers have started. The growth or the birth of the computers have started from that point, where people started to think about computers and also started to work on them even more to make it a much more better product. And then we have Baron Leibniz, who invented the first calculator for multiplication. That was in 1671. Just see the dates where 1642, 1671, and then we have keyboard machines. The keyboard machines that we are using today are totally different from what we had in those days, but still the evolution has started from there, where there was a long gap between the mechanical adding machine calculator for multiplication and the keyboard machines. There is like 200 years gap. It took a lot of time initially for people to understand them, to create different kinds of technologies and evolve. But in the recent times, if you see, technology is evolving at a very fast rate, where we are able to get so many advances in a very short period of time, whereas in those days it was totally different. That is all because the architectures that we used and the kind of research that we had in those days. And in 1880 we had Hermann Hollerith, who came up with the concept of punched cards. Punched cards are a very interesting concept. You can just try it out as an activity, where you can go to the internet and search about punched cards. What are punched cards? How do they look? What do they do actually? And how did they store data into it? Just you can have a reading about it. But if I have some time, I'll try to show you that image and how is it working, etc. But as of now, and then the modern computers age has started with Charles Babbage. He is the one who he is considered as the father of modern computers, where he first designed the difference engine in 1822. That is the point where people started to know what a computer is, what are its capabilities. And in those days, people only used it in the military purpose, for military purposes. Governments only, they could afford it and they could maintain such computers. And then he designed a fully automatic analytical engine in 1842 for performing the basic arithmetic operations. This basic arithmetic operation is different from the one that happened in 1600s. That was purely different, and this is purely different. And then there are a few well-known computers. You can just make a note of all these names and just try to find out what these computers are or how they used to look. The first one is the Mark I computer. It is very famous and a very highly performable computer. And then we had Antons of Berry computer in 1939 to 1942. That was the period where these computers were very well known and they played a important role in the industry. And then the ENIAC, EDSAC, Manchester Mark I, these all had a very good impact on the industry in those days. And then the computer generations. As of now, we have 5 generations of computers, where the evolution, from the starting of the evolution till today, we have like 5 generations we can consider. But the computers that we use these days have the generations of Intel processor, where they call them the 8th generation, 9th generation, 10th generation, but that generation is totally dependent for that Intel organization itself. But this generation is about the overall technology updates or the technology improvements that happen in the industry. Based on the radical shifts that we had in the technologies, they are categorized into 5 computer generations. We'll see about the computer generations in the next class, but as of now, you have to first understand what are these computers, how did they look like, what are the functions of these computers, and how did they perform. That is what you have to understand. I'll put this slide for a while. You can just make a note of it and try to find out as an activity. If not, then if you just try to find something about it, then in the next class we'll have a overview and we'll discuss a little about it. Because when you read something about it on the internet, and when I try to tell you something, there will be a link between them and you'll be able to understand even better. So that's the reason I'm just putting up this part. And there are many people who fear about the computers and how the technology is working on, like how do we use it. There are many kinds of fears in people, and in the younger generation maybe because if they are not much used to the computers, then they have this kind of a phobia kind of a thing. But trust me, it is very simple. If you go through the right path and if you just keep on understanding things, it will be very easy. And all the subjects that you are going to learn will be interconnected. So try to interconnect between the subjects, where I will give you an example where in chemistry you read about the periodic table, where you have the elements, in that you have the semiconductors. All the computer architectures or the computer components, the major processor components, the registers, RAMs, whatever the RAM, whatever we are using in today's computer architecture, everything is based upon semiconductors. So what are these semiconductors? They have the chemical properties, and they are based on totally upon your periodic table and its properties. So there is a very strong connection between the components that you use inside a computer and the chemistry, both of them. If you don't make a link in between these two, while you are reading computers, it would look like a different subject, and if you are reading chemistry, it will be looking like a different subject. If you try to maintain some connection between these two, you will be able to understand them better, and there will be a lot of practical exposure for you. Because in the semiconductors you have silicon, germanium, etc., where these components, these chemical have their own properties, and these properties are used in designing the computer architecture, because they are very much simple and also compact. The computers or the architectures that we are using today are very much compact and sleek. The reason is we have shifted towards electronics and the semiconductors that we are using today, which is helping us to bring in a very compact and a sleek kind of a computer. So that is all for today. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you.